Well, my internet crashed during my last recording, so I am going to give this a try again. Hopefully my internet doesn't crash. I'm not exactly sure where I lost you on the last one, so I'm just going to quickly summarize that this table is fantastic right here. It literally, if you go through and you think about the function and the approximate value, it's a very powerful way to look at if you're looking at somebody's blood work and you see elevated neutrophils, for instance. Well, the function of neutrophils is to eat bacteria and other pathogens, but primarily bacteria. Man, so if you ended up seeing a patient whose neutrophil value was 80%, you know they have a bacterial infection. Eosinophils, parasitic or allergic reactions, basophils, inflammation, lymphocytes, viral pathogens, monocytes. They're going to go around and eat things tagged by lymphocytes. Lymphocytes use antibodies to tag bad things. Then the monocytes recognize those and eat them. The last of the formed elements we want to talk about are the thrombocytes. Thrombo is related to blood clotting. Okay, so there's all sorts of different platelet disorders out there. There are so many different types of platelet disorders. If you don't believe me, just go online and just type in thrombocyte disorders, and you're going to see a list that just goes on forever and ever and ever. One of the primary ones is thrombocytopenia, and thrombocytopenia is low numbers of thrombocytes, so that person's not going to be able to clot properly. How do you determine that? You do a blood panel, and if the value of thrombocyte platelets is less than 150,000 per millimeter cubed, then they have thrombocytopenia. You don't exactly know what it's caused from at this point, but it can end up causing that patient to have serious bleeding disorders because thrombocytes help with blood clotting, normal blood clotting, and when you're injured. But you need blood clotting at all time to some small level. You don't want massive clots forming when you're in normal life, but so what exactly is a blood clot? It's all this mess you see right here, okay, where there's platelets involved, and then after the platelets come into play, it's going to start producing these big, huge mesh networks made out of fibrin, which fibrin is made of collagen. So these are really strong ropes that hold everything together in a blood clot. And we're going to go through the process of making a blood clot in just a minute. Before we do, just want to remind you, just like all the rest of these formed elements, there is an origin of the cytoblasm, right? These stem cells that are up here, found in the red bone marrow, well, that's where these thrombocytes come into play. And if they are exposed to thrombopoietin, remember erythropoietin helped with the formation of red blood cells, but now have thrombosis, therefore we have called thrombopoietin. This ends in ion. Again, we got our protein, functional. It's produced from the liver. Holy moly, 90% of all blood proteins are made in the liver. Well, that's going to end up causing this huge cell, mega karyoblast, huge cell, to start branched into a megakaryocyte. And the megakaryocyte creates these weird octopus legs. They're a little fruit. And these octopus legs are going to reach out from the red bone marrow, and they're going to creep their way into your bloodstream. So just these legs go out into the blood vessels, into the bloodstream, and then the blood, as it passes by these proplatelet, these little legs, it's going to cleave off tiny little pieces of legs of the megakaryocyte, and that's what produces platelets. Platelets are not a cell in themselves. They are just tiny elements of a much bigger cell. Crazy. Super cool. So what are platelets for? Got a lot of terminology that kind of keeps getting repeated here. We've learned about Hemopoiesis. We've learned about homeostasis. Well, this word here is a combination of the two. It's hemostasis. Hemo meaning blood, stasis meaning to maintain or regulate. So hemostasis is what allows you to stop bleeding if you get an injury. And you're constantly getting small injuries because things in your body are getting old. Constantly getting some injuries. I hope my voice isn't too bad here. Hemostasis is normal homeostasis. Great use of terminology. But your body constantly needs to stop bleeding. You probably don't even close to realizing this, but your body is always going through some sort of vascularization damage just because of pressures, and we need to stop. This is stopped via blood clot. Otherwise, all those red blood cells just bleed on out. So how does this all work? Well, there are three phases of hemostasis: a vascular spasm, platelet plug formation, and a coagulation phase. Vascular spasm is just vasoconstriction. So if you have blood vessel injury, what do we want to do to the amount of blood getting to that tissue so we don't bleed out? Let's vasoconstrict. A vascular spasm means that that blood vessel shrinky-dinks down, squeezes down, and the smaller the tube, the less blood can get through. So that's the first. Oh, what a pain. Keeps crashing. Yell at my internet service even more. So I'm guessing you guys aren't even really getting too much. I'm probably coming through as a, oh yeah, auto tune. All right, I'm going to stop. So I'll go back some other time. Sorry, I'll do an entire different lecture on hemostasis later.